It's been a while since Massachusetts Nightmares, Part 1 sent chills down everyone's spine. That series blew up, and now, we're back. Welcome to Massachusetts Nightmares, Part 2, an even darker, more mysterious descent into the hidden crimes, unsolved murders, and haunting disappearances that continue to grip the Bay State. In this episode, we'll uncover 5 of the most chilling and unexplained cases Massachusetts has ever seen. So sit tight, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Number 1. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum Heist, 1990. Location, Boston, Massachusetts. On a quiet March night in 1990, 2 men dressed as Boston police officers rang the buzzer of a world-famous art museum. What happened next would become the largest unsolved art theft in history, and one of Boston's most enduring mysteries. It was March 18, 1990, around 1:24 a.m., when the security guard at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heard a buzz at the side door. 2 men in police uniforms stood outside. One spoke into the intercom. "Boston Police. We've received a call about a disturbance." Against museum policy, the guard buzzed them in. Within minutes, those officers revealed themselves to be imposters. They handcuffed the 2 on-duty guards, Rick Abath and Randy Heston, duct-taped their eyes and mouths, and took control of the museum. What happened next was both methodical and baffling. The thieves, who were inside for 81 minutes, moved calmly through the galleries, cutting priceless paintings from their frames. When they left, they took 13 pieces of art valued at more than $500 million, works by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Degas, and Manet. Among the stolen pieces, the concert by Johannes Vermeer, one of only 34 known Vermeers in existence. The Storm on the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt, his only seascape. A small bronze eagle finial. 5 Degas sketches. A Chinese gu vase from the Shang dynasty. The robbers left behind far more valuable items. That's one of the many mysteries, why those particular works. It didn't look random, but it didn't make sense either. When morning came, the guards were found still bound in the basement. The frames of the stolen paintings, empty, still hang in the museum today, like ghosts frozen in time. The FBI took control of the investigation within hours. No alarms were tripped besides the one triggered when the thieves entered, meaning they knew exactly what to disable. The robbers seemed to understand the building's layout, security systems, and shift patterns. Investigators first looked at Rick Abath, the guard who let them in. He was a 23-year-old Berkeley College dropout known for his easygoing attitude. He claimed he thought it was a routine police check. The FBI later admitted that while his actions were strange, there wasn't enough evidence to link him to the theft. Over the years, theories multiplied. Some believed it was an inside job involving organized crime. The Boston Mafia, especially figures tied to Whitey Bulger, were suspected early on. But Bulger always denied involvement, saying even he didn't rob museums. Others pointed to Robert Gentile, a Connecticut mob associate. In 2016, FBI agents searched his home and found a list of the stolen artworks, but not the paintings themselves. Gentile always claimed he didn't have them. The FBI later revealed they believed 2 suspects, now both deceased, were likely responsible. George Reisfelder and Leonard DiMuzio, both low-level Boston criminals with mob ties. However, with both men dead, the trail ran cold. Despite hundreds of leads, wiretaps, and international tips, none of the art has ever been recovered. The FBI and museum still offer a $10 million reward for any information leading to the return of the works, the largest bounty of its kind. Investigators have tracked potential sightings of the stolen art in Philadelphia, Ireland, and Japan, but nothing has been verified. Some experts believe the paintings were destroyed, others think they're hidden in private collections, traded through criminal networks like currency. The museum still displays the empty frames in their original positions, honoring Isabella Stewart Gardner's will, which stated that no artwork could ever be replaced or rearranged. It's a haunting reminder of what was lost, and what still lies hidden. Over 3 decades later, the case continues to fascinate art lovers, detectives, and storytellers alike. No one has ever been charged. No piece has ever been found. Was it the work of professionals? A mob operation gone wrong? Or a quiet betrayal from within? The truth remains locked behind silence and time, like a masterpiece trapped in the dark. The Gardner Museum heist remains one of the world's greatest unsolved mysteries. Number 2. Firefighters turned arsonists, the Alston Street Arson Ring. Boston. 1982. A city that had long trusted its heroes, the firefighters, the ones who ran into danger when everyone else ran out. But for 2 long years, that trust would burn away in smoke and ash. Because behind the glow of those flames were the very men sworn to stop them. This is the true story of the Alston Street Arson Ring, the firefighters who became the fire. Between 1982 and 1984, Boston was burning. Abandoned warehouses, factories, empty buildings, torched one after another. At first, it looked like a coincidence. Then the fires spread, from Dorchester to Roxbury, from Everett to Lynn, until more than 260 fires had scarred Massachusetts. The cost? Millions in damages. Dozens injured. And a city on edge. But there was something about these fires that didn't sit right. Each one burned just hot enough to make headlines. But in places where no one was supposed to get hurt. Almost like someone wanted attention, not destruction. At the time, Boston's fire departments were facing heavy budget cuts. Stations were closing. Overtime was disappearing. Some firefighters, angry and desperate, whispered that city officials would only act if the fires came back. That whisper grew louder inside the Alston Street firehouse, where a small group of men convinced themselves they could prove their worth by lighting fires and then bravely putting them out. They called themselves the Boston Arson Squad. They saw it as a message. But what they started as a statement, quickly spiraled into chaos. The ringleader was a veteran firefighter, respected, charismatic, frustrated. He gathered a small group of fellow firefighters and even a few police officers. They scouted empty buildings at night, often in working-class neighborhoods. They'd pour gasoline inside, light a fuse, and drive off to watch the blaze. Minutes later, they'd arrive back at the scene, in uniform, to save the day. It was a twisted cycle of destruction and heroism. A crime hidden beneath the sirens of duty. For months, nobody suspected them. To the public, they were heroes. To the city, they were chaos cloaked in courage. But the pattern didn't go unnoticed. Boston's arson task force and the ATF began tracking the blazes. They noticed similarities: timing, fuel type, ignition style. And one location appeared again and again, the Alston Street Firehouse. Federal agents began tailing off-duty firefighters, setting up hidden surveillance, and collecting samples from burned sites. Then came the break they needed. A young firefighter, shaken and fearful, stepped forward. He told investigators what they had long suspected. Some of the fires were inside jobs. The ATF launched a massive undercover operation. Agents trailed the suspects for weeks. They caught them on surveillance buying accelerants and scouting new targets. Then, in late 1984, before dawn broke over Boston, federal teams moved in. Firehouses across the city were raided. And for the first time, firefighters were arrested for arson. It was one of the darkest mornings in Boston's history. The men once seen as protectors led away in handcuffs, their faces hidden from the cameras. When the case went to court, the truth stunned the nation. 10 men, including active firefighters and police officers, were indicted. Prosecutors said their motive was publicity. They wanted to show the world how much Boston needed its firefighters. But the fires they started nearly killed innocent people, including children trapped in nearby buildings. One witness described it as a sickness that spread through the ranks. In the end, several were convicted. Some served long sentences. Others turned state's evidence to save themselves. And when the verdicts were read, the city went quiet. Because what do you do when your heroes become the villains? Boston eventually healed, but scars remained, both on its streets and in its spirit. For years, firefighters struggled to rebuild the trust that a few had burned away. The city tightened its fire investigation protocols, ensuring no tragedy like it could happen again. But the image of firefighters, standing in handcuffs, firelight flickering behind them, would never fade. The Alston Street Arson Ring stands as one of the most shocking betrayals in American firefighting history. Proof that even the noblest uniforms can hide the darkest intentions. Number 3. The mysterious death of Karina Holmer. Boston, June 23, 1996. A garbage collector lifts a heavy trash bag from a dumpster in the Back Bay area. Inside, lies the upper half of a young woman's body. No legs. No shoes. No ID. Only a faint trace of perfume, and a mystery that would haunt Massachusetts for decades. This is the story of Karina Holmer, the Swedish nanny who came to America chasing a dream, but met an ending so brutal, so inexplicable, that it remains one of Boston's darkest mysteries. Karina Holmer grew up in a quiet town called Skillingaryd, Sweden. She was known for her radiant smile, her love for music, and an adventurous heart. At 19, she won the Swedish lottery, a small sum, but enough to fund the trip of her dreams. In March of 1996, she left Sweden for Boston, where she would work as an au pair, caring for 2 young children in the wealthy suburb of Dover. To friends, it sounded like the perfect American experience. But Karina's letters home hinted at something else: loneliness, homesickness, and an unease she couldn't quite explain. Friday, June 21, 1996, the first day of summer. Karina joined a group of friends heading to Boston's downtown club scene. They ended up at Zanzibar, a popular nightclub on Boylston Place. She danced, laughed, and took photos, seeming carefree. But by 2 a.m., something changed. Witnesses say Karina appeared intoxicated. A bouncer escorted her outside when the club closed. That was the last confirmed sighting. The next time anyone saw Karina, she was dead. Early Sunday morning, a garbage collector named Frank Rapp lifted a bag from a dumpster behind 551, Boylston Street. He tore it open, and froze. Inside was Karina's upper torso, neatly cut at the waist. No blood, no lower half of the body, suggesting she had been killed and dismembered elsewhere. Her killer had taken time, and precision. The brutality shocked even veteran detectives. Boston police immediately launched one of the city's largest murder investigations in years. Investigators started close. Karina's employer, Frank Rapp, a photographer, and his girlfriend, Susan Nichter, a local artist, came under scrutiny. Some of Karina's friends said she had mentioned a problem with someone, though no one knew who. Police searched Rapp's home, his car, and even his art studio. But found nothing linking him to the crime. Then came the sightings. Some claimed to have seen Karina near a man with a black dog around 3 a.m. Others reported a mysterious blue van in the area that night. Each lead led nowhere. No murder weapon. No witnesses. No motive. And without DNA technology as advanced as today, investigators were left grasping at shadows. In Karina's belongings, police found her journal. One chilling line stood out. "Everything is different now. I'm afraid." No one knew what she meant, or who she was referring to. Had she discovered something? Was she being followed? Swedish newspapers speculated about a secret relationship. Others believed she was killed by someone she trusted. And a few even linked the case to underground crime groups or human trafficking rings. But none of it could be proven. Nearly 30 years later, Karina Holmer's case remains unsolved. Her lower body has never been found. No one has ever been charged. Her family in Sweden still lights a candle every June 23rd, hoping for closure. But for Boston, her name has become a ghost story, one whispered among detectives, journalists, and true crime lovers alike. Was it a random act of violence? A jealous rage? Or the perfect crime by someone who knew how to vanish? Karina came to America full of light. But somewhere in the shadows of Boston's nightlife, that light was stolen. Number 4. The Boston Vanishing Triangle. Between 1989 and 2003, a quiet dread settled over Massachusetts. It began with whispers, a few missing person reports that seemed unrelated. But as the years went on, those whispers turned into a chilling pattern, women, all between 19 and 37 years old, vanishing into thin air. Most of them were last seen in the Boston area or along Route 128, a beltway looping around the city. They weren't from the same neighborhood, didn't share the same friends, and didn't have the same jobs. Yet something connected them. Something no one could quite explain. Police reports came in one after another. First, in 1989, Patricia Walsh, a 23-year-old nursing assistant, left her late-night hospital shift in Brighton and never made it home. Her car was found neatly parked 2 streets away from her apartment. Her purse and ID were still inside. No sign of a struggle. It was as if she had stepped off the face of the earth. 3 years later, in 1992, Cynthia Kramer, a 27-year-old graduate student from Brookline, went missing after leaving a friend's birthday dinner. She told her friend she'd text when she got home, but that message never came. Her car was later discovered on a desolate road off Route 128, keys still in the ignition, the driver's door slightly ajar. By 1996, the pattern was undeniable. Christine Shadow, 31, disappeared while driving from a night class in Newton. Her co-workers described her as cautious. The type to double-lock her doors and always call if she'd be late. The next morning, her parents received a call. Her car had been found abandoned near a rest stop. No fingerprints. No tire marks. No trace of Christine. The disappearances continued, like clockwork, every few years. Different women. Different lives. But the same outcome. At first, law enforcement treated each case as an isolated incident. A runaway here. A domestic dispute there. It wasn't until 2001, when a journalist named Rachel DeLuca began connecting the dots, that the term, the Boston Vanishing Triangle, appeared in local papers. Rachel noticed something uncanny. Nearly every disappearance occurred within a 20-mile radius of Route 128. The women all shared similar physical profiles, dark hair, average height, independent, educated. And each case seemed to follow a pattern of normalcy, right up until the moment of vanishing. The theory spread fast. Some said it had to be a serial predator, someone organized, intelligent, able to track victims without being noticed. Others suspected human trafficking rings using the Boston corridor as a route out of the state. A few even whispered about police corruption, suggesting someone on the inside was helping cover up the truth. But the deeper journalists dug, the stranger it became. Files went missing. Witness statements contradicted each other. One detective, who spoke anonymously, said he believed the cases were connected by design. But that higher-ups didn't want the panic. By 2003, fear had settled deep into local life. Women refused to drive alone at night. Bars organized buddy systems. Even the most ordinary neighborhoods felt haunted by the possibility that someone, or something, was still out there watching. Then came the discovery. Late in the fall of 2003, a hiker stumbled upon human remains in a wooded area near Franklin, Massachusetts, about 25 miles southwest of Boston. The case broke open overnight. DNA testing confirmed that the remains belonged to 2 of the missing women, Cynthia Kramer and another, Lydia Harrington, who had vanished in 1999. But instead of bringing answers, the discovery only deepened the mystery. Both women had died around the same time, years apart from their disappearances. And the conditions of their remains suggested two entirely different methods. Investigators couldn't agree whether it was the work of one killer, or several. Evidence gathered from the scene, a piece of torn fabric, tire impressions, and faint traces of industrial cleaning fluid, offered no clear direction. Nothing tied to a known suspect. Nothing that explained the silence that had lasted more than a decade. To this day, no one has been charged. Families of the victims continue to hold vigils every year, praying for closure. Some say the police stopped caring. Others believe the truth is buried under bureaucratic red tape, lost in forgotten evidence boxes, or locked away in someone's conscience. And as for the Boston Vanishing Triangle, it remains one of Massachusetts' darkest and most disturbing unsolved mysteries. Because somewhere between those suburban streets, the wooded roads, and the quiet highways circling Boston, something was hunting, methodical, patient, unseen. And if you drive down Route 128 at night, locals say you can still see the old missing posters fluttering in the wind, faded faces staring back, as if still waiting to be found. Number 5. The murder of John O'Keefe, the case that divided Massachusetts. January 29, 2022. Canton, Massachusetts, a quiet, upper-middle-class town blanketed in snow. At dawn, police discover the body of a Boston police officer lying in the yard of a suburban home. He's frozen, battered, and motionless. His name is John O'Keefe. What happened that night has since become one of the most divisive and polarizing murder cases in Massachusetts history. A night of drinks, friends, and snow, that spiraled into death, accusation, and allegations of corruption that still shake the state. This is the story of the murder of John O'Keefe, and the woman accused of killing him, his girlfriend, Karen Redd. It was Friday night, January 28, 2022. John O'Keefe, a 16-year veteran of the Boston Police Department, and his girlfriend, financial analyst Karen Reed, spent the evening at a local bar in Canton called Canton's Waterfall Bar and Grill. They were there with friends, including other police officers. Witnesses say the night was lively, drinks, laughter, even some light arguments, but nothing that seemed alarming. As snow began to fall heavily, the group decided to move to an after-party at a nearby house, owned by Brian Albert, a retired Boston police sergeant. Around 12:30 a.m., O'Keefe and Redd left the bar together in Karen's black Lexus SUV. What happened next remains fiercely disputed. Karen Redd told investigators that she dropped John off in front of Brian Albert's house shortly after 12:30 a.m. She said he was planning to go inside for the after-party, but that she didn't go in because she felt tired and wanted to head home. According to her statement, John texted her briefly afterward, but when she woke up hours later and couldn't reach him, panic set in. By early morning, around 6 a.m., Karen began frantically calling and texting friends. John never came home. He's not answering. Did he stay at Brian's? Moments later, she drove back toward Fairview Road, joined by two friends, Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts. At around 6:30 a.m., the women's headlights cut across the front yard of the house on Fairview Road. There, half buried in snow, lay John O'Keefe. His body was motionless, his clothes frozen stiff. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was too late. John was pronounced dead shortly after being taken to Good Samaritan Hospital. The autopsy revealed head trauma, lacerations, and signs of hypothermia. But what caused those injuries would soon ignite a storm. Within days, Karen Redd, the woman who'd found him, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of an accident. Prosecutors claimed she struck O'Keefe with her SUV while intoxicated, then left him to die in the snow. They pointed to damage on her vehicle's right rear taillight, glass fragments near the body, and what they said was a confession overheard by witnesses. "I hit him. I hit him. I hit him." But Karen Reed's defense team painted an entirely different picture. Reed's lawyers argued that she was being framed, that John O'Keefe never made it inside the house because something happened inside that house. They claimed that O'Keefe was attacked or injured during the party and later placed outside to die, and that local law enforcement protected their own. The defense alleged that the lead investigators had personal connections to the Alberts and others at the party that night, and that evidence was mishandled, including phone data and DNA testing. Supporters of Reed began gathering outside the courthouse, holding signs reading, "Free Karen Reed," and "Justice for John." The case soon divided Massachusetts, with one side convinced of Karen's guilt, and the other convinced of a massive cover-up involving police and prosecutors. The media swarmed the case. Headlines called it Canton's crime of the century. Talk shows, podcasts, and national outlets picked it apart, every detail, every photo, every leak. At protests outside court, the crowd grew louder. Some accused the state of protecting insiders, others demanded justice for O'Keefe. Even online, hashtags clashed, #FreeKarenReed versus #JusticeForJohn. The courtroom became not just a battleground of evidence, but of trust in the entire Massachusetts justice system. When the trial began, witnesses gave conflicting accounts. Forensic experts argued over glass fragments, vehicle speed, and injury angles. The defense dissected text messages and data logs. The prosecution emphasized Karen's drinking that night and her alleged confession. After weeks of tense testimony, emotional outbursts, and viral moments, the jury reached its conclusion. In June 2024, after 5 days of deliberation, the judge declared a mistrial. The jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision. For now, Karen Reed remains a free woman, but she is still facing retrial. Her defense continues to insist she's innocent, that the real story of John O'Keefe's death has yet to be told. John O'Keefe was remembered by friends and family as a devoted police officer, a man who took care of his orphaned niece and nephew, and who served his community with quiet dedication. But his death, and the firestorm that followed, exposed deeper wounds. Questions about truth, loyalty, and whether justice in small-town Massachusetts can survive power and politics. As of today, no one truly knows what happened that snowy night on Fairview Road. But the state of Massachusetts still waits, for answers, for closure, and for justice. These are just some of the most chilling and eerie cases to ever come out of Massachusetts, but the nightmare isn't over yet. More strange disappearances, twisted motives, and haunting mysteries still await. So if you haven't already, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned, because the next chilling story might just keep you up tonight.